The email came just after lunch. No subject line. Just a PDF attachment from the investigator I'd hired 6 weeks ago. I'd been expecting something eventually, but when it finally came, my heart still dropped into my stomach. I closed the door to my office, sat down at my desk, and opened the file. 12 years. 12 years of lies. 12 years of thinking I knew the woman I married. Her name, her face, all the same. But everything else, all fake. The investigator had included everything. Hotel records, wire transfers, text message screenshots, flight itineraries. Dana's smiling face in the corner of a dozen grainy photos, always with him. Malcolm Ridgway, her old CEO, the man who gave her those consulting gigs, I'd always found conveniently timed. The timeline hit hardest. The affair started less than a year after our youngest was born. While I was knee-deep in diapers and overtime, she was building a second life. There was even video. I couldn't bring myself to open that one. Not yet. I rubbed my temples, trying to remember how to breathe. A long-term affair is bad enough. But when it's 12 years, that's a whole different beast. My first thought was about the kids. Are they mine? The question made me sick, but it clawed through my brain anyway. I picked up the phone and called the investigator. Put me in touch with a private lab. I want DNA tests for both children. Quietly. Understood, he said. No judgment. Just business. And I want a full STD panel. For me and for Dana. You got it. And there's something else you should know. Of course there was. He cleared his throat. Malcolm's executive assistant, Tessa Ridgway, his sister, she's been booking a lot of Dana's travel. Covering for her, by the looks of it. Tessa, I muttered. I should have known. He hesitated. You want me to keep going? I looked at the photo of my family on my desk, the four of us at a lake cabin in Vermont. I remembered that trip. I thought we were happy. Yeah, I said. Keep going. But don't send anything else to my email. From now on, we meet in person. Understood. I hung up and stared out the window for a long time. The parking lot below shimmered in the heat, but I felt cold. Numb. 12 years. I thought back to all the business trips. The late-night calls. The perfume I didn't recognize. The tired excuses I believed. I'd built this life brick by brick. A good job, a nice home, healthy kids. I sacrificed for it. For us. But Dana? She built something else. Something hidden. With him. I wasn't even sure what to call what I was feeling. Anger? Shock? Grief? Betrayal, yes. But deeper than that. Like the ground under me had shifted and I couldn't find where to stand. I pulled out a notebook and wrote down 2 words. Test everything. Parentage. Finances. Property titles. Emails. All of it. And beneath that, I wrote. Keep calm. Plan carefully. No confrontations yet. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. Not on her terms. Not when I had 2 kids to protect. Whether they were mine by blood or not, they were mine in every other way. I stared at the photo again. My daughter's smile. My son's goofy expression. They deserved better than this. Better than secrets. Better than a mother who gambled everything for power. I stood up, locked the report in my filing cabinet, and texted my assistant to reschedule my meetings for the afternoon. Then I went home early. Not to talk to Dana. Not yet. I just needed to hear my kids laugh. To remind myself why I was still standing. Tomorrow, I'd start the real work. The legal side. The financial cleanup. The medical screenings. The private testing. Tonight, I'd cook dinner. I'd sit at the table and pretend for a few more hours that my family wasn't built on a lie. And when Dana walked through the door later with her consultant, smile, and her fake stories, I'd be ready. Not to explode. To endure. To prepare. And eventually, to dismantle everything she thought she could keep hidden. Brick by brick. Just like I'd built it. I got home before Dana that night. The kids were watching a movie in the living room. Bowls of popcorn between them. Feet tangled in the blanket we kept on the couch. I kissed both their heads, told them I'd order pizza later, then retreated to my study and closed the door. When Dana came through the front door around 8:30, I could hear her kicking off her heels in the hallway, humming something under her breath. Happy. Relaxed. That part got under my skin more than I wanted to admit. Hey, babe. She called out like it was any other evening. Sorry I'm late. The client meeting ran over. You wouldn't believe how long this guy talks about energy policy. I walked out of the study, leaned against the doorframe. Energy policy? I asked, keeping my tone casual. She blinked at me, just for a moment, like she wasn't expecting me to question it. Yeah, she said, recovering. The consulting firm paired me with a guy doing work with federal lobbying stuff. Long story, kinda boring. I didn't answer right away. Just nodded and looked her over. Tailored blazer, silk blouse, makeup still perfect. She looked like someone who hadn't been sitting in a real meeting all day. She looked like someone who'd come from a hotel room. "What's up with you?" she asked, brushing past me toward the kitchen. "You're home early." I didn't follow. "Just decided I didn't feel like working late," I said. "Felt like being with the family." "That's nice," she said, already poking through the fridge. "Oh, heads up. I've got a conference thing this weekend. Friday through Sunday. Some tech symposium. Out near Alexandria. It's one of those retreat-type places." I said, crossing my arms. She paused. "What?" I looked at her. Really looked. "It's just funny," I said. "Because Sophie's recital is Saturday. She's been practicing that piece for 2 weeks. Remember?" Dana froze, just for a second. "Wait, is that this weekend? I thought it was the following Saturday." "Nope. It's this Saturday. 11 a.m. You said you'd take the morning off to be there." She turned and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Sam, I can't help the scheduling. This event is locked in. I didn't choose the date." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't choose the date?" "I didn't," she said quickly. "I mean, it came through the firm. It's not like I can just turn things down without notice." That was her move. Make it sound like she was the victim of scheduling. Like she didn't have any agency. "Right?" I said, my voice flat. "It's just work. Gotta keep those clients happy." "Exactly," she said, relieved that I seemed to be letting it go. I let the silence stretch, watching her open a bottle of sparkling water like nothing had just passed between us. "You know," I said, "it's strange." "What is?" she asked, not looking up. I tilted my head. "How much you travel lately? How many of these last-minute events keep popping up? And somehow, they're always just far enough away that you've got to stay overnight." She went still again. "What are you implying?" she asked slowly. "I'm not implying anything," I said. "Just making observations." "Well, your observations are off," she snapped. "I'm busting my ass trying to keep up with these contracts while juggling the kids, the house, you." "I didn't say you weren't working hard," I said softly. "I just said the timing is interesting." She narrowed her eyes. "Where is this coming from?" I didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, I asked, "You remember Tessa Ridgway?" She blinked. "Of course I do. Malcolm's assistant." "Why?" "She still works with him, right?" "Yeah, I guess so. I haven't talked to her in years." I nodded. "Right." Dana looked at me like she wanted to say something else, like she was trying to read where I was going. But instead, she grabbed her phone and said, "I've got some emails to finish. Let me know when dinner's ready." I watched her disappear down the hallway toward the bedroom. She didn't ask about my day. Didn't ask why I was acting different. She just floated through the lie like she'd done it 100 times before. Because she had. Later that night, after the kids went to bed, I went back into my study and pulled out the flash drive the investigator had given me. I waited until I heard the shower running upstairs before I slid it into the port and opened the folder labeled Ridgway, Suite 243, April 2023. There she was, on screen, sitting on the edge of a hotel bed, laughing at something off camera. She was barefoot, wearing a robe I didn't recognize. And then she spoke. I know. I'm the worst. But I love them. I really do. I love Sam. I love the kids. I can't give this up. Not yet. I still need this part of me." Her voice broke a little. I thought it would stop when Malcolm left the firm, but it's like part of me hoped he wouldn't. I need him to look at me that way. Like I matter. The recording ended there. The file was barely a minute long, but it was enough. She knew. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she did it anyway. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from the monitor. I didn't cry. Didn't punch the desk. I just sat still. The grief was there, sharp, cold. But there was something else, too. A strange calm. She'd buried the knife so deep, I didn't even feel it going in. But now I saw everything clearly. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to burn it all down. Quietly. Precisely. Just like an engineer would. It was a chilly Saturday morning when I walked into Harriet Vance's office. Her firm was on the 6th floor of a glass building just outside Arlington, the kind of place with leather chairs and quiet hallways that smelled faintly of printer toner and ambition. I'd done my research. Harriet didn't advertise. She didn't need to. She was the kind of attorney who built her reputation through scorched-earth litigation and quiet settlements with seven-figure hush clauses. She was my first and only call. "Mr. Keene," she said, rising from behind her desk with a firm handshake. "Please, sit." She didn't waste time on small talk. I appreciated that. I opened my briefcase and handed her the folder. Photos, timeline, travel records, wire transfers, printouts of the investigator's report. It was neat, structured, complete. Harriet flipped through it in silence, her eyes sharp and emotionless. Every so often, her brow lifted slightly, like she was taking mental notes. "This is good," she finally said. "Very good. Not just for divorce proceedings. This would make excellent evidence in a custody hearing." "That's the plan," I said. She looked up. "Walk me through your goals." "I want full custody," I said flatly. "No shared. No rotating weekends. I want the kids with me, permanently." Harriet nodded once, not even blinking. "I want the house, the accounts, and I want it done cleanly," I added. "She can have her jewelry, her clothes, maybe her car if I'm feeling generous, but nothing else." "She works." "She did, up until about 5 years ago," I said. "Quit after her tech startup cashed out. She got a 7-figure buyout and hasn't clocked in since." Harriet's eyes narrowed. "Good. That'll kill any alimony argument. If she's financially independent and voluntarily unemployed, she's on her own." I nodded. "Also, she committed long-term fraud in the marriage. Emotional and financial. Infidelity isn't illegal in Virginia," Harriet said, flipping another page. "But we can show it had material impact. It'll sway the judge, especially if we position it around parental stability." She paused. "And what about Malcolm Ridgway? Technically divorced. No kids. Still loaded. Still smirking. And his sister, Tessa?" she asked. "She coordinated most of Dana's travel. Booked flights. Helped conceal it." Harriet closed the folder slowly. "I suggest we include Tessa in the discovery. Name her in the preliminary filings. Even if we don't follow through on action, the pressure alone will rattle them." "I was thinking the same," I said. She nodded again. "We'll need to move fast. When are you planning to serve her?" "Next weekend," I said. "She'll be at Ridgway's estate again. I confirmed it through the GPS tracker on her car. They'll be there Friday to Sunday." Harriet smiled for the first time. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind you'd see in a courtroom right before a cross-examination began. "Then that's when we hit," she said. I handed her a second envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Symbolic delivery," I said. "Wedding ring. A scorched veil. Letter of resignation from this marriage, so to speak." She lifted the corner of the envelope and peered inside, then laughed, short, dry, approving. "Poetic," she said. I nodded. "I want her served in front of him. In front of his staff, if possible. I want there to be no doubt." Harriet leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "You're very calm for a man being dragged through this kind of betrayal." "I already fell apart," I said. "Now I'm building something else." She smiled again. "You're going to be an excellent client." We spent another hour going over logistics. Trust accounts, medical documentation, custody affidavits. I already had DNA kits in process for the kids. Harriet advised how to handle the results legally, whatever they turned out to be. "If they're not yours?" she asked, gently. "They're still mine," I said. She didn't challenge that, just made another note and moved on. Before I left, she handed me a card. My cell number, not the office line. If anything changes, if she tries to contact you, or if Ridgway gets smart, call me. "Got it," I said, standing. As I walked back to the elevator, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Not peace exactly, but control. Dana had built a fantasy on the scaffolding of our life together. A secret stage for her double life, carefully lit and privately scripted. Now, I was pulling the curtains back. She thought she was untouchable, but I had an army now, and a lawyer who burned careers for breakfast. And next weekend, when she walked into that estate wearing her favorite perfume and her smug little smile, she'd find a process server waiting on the lawn, right beside a box of ashes, and a goodbye she would never forget. Saturday arrived crisp and cloudless, just like Sophie had hoped. Her piano recital was scheduled for 11 sharp, and by 9:30, I had balloons up in the backyard, lemonade chilling in a glass dispenser, and a Bluetooth speaker softly playing the soundtrack from The Sound of Music, her current favorite. She wore a little black dress with white sleeves and shiny flats. I tied a blue ribbon in her hair while she stood in front of the mirror, bouncing on her toes. You'd never know that her mother hadn't called to wish her luck, or that her mom had said she'd make it up to her next weekend. Sophie hadn't cried about it. She didn't say much at all, actually. But when she hugged me before we left for the recital, she held on for a long time. The recital itself was everything she wanted, short, sweet, and packed with grandparents and neighbors clapping like they were at Carnegie Hall. She didn't miss a note. Afterward, I took the kids home for a surprise. I turned our backyard into a party space, just for her. There were cupcakes, twinkle lights, a soft-serve machine I rented from a buddy. Her friends from school came over, piano teachers too. Everyone was laughing, eating, taking pictures in front of a makeshift photo wall I built out of foam board and glitter glue. Dana, of course, wasn't there. She was exactly where I knew she'd be, 40 minutes away, tucked inside Malcolm Ridgway's weekend estate in Great Falls. Her car was parked in the garage, per the GPS tracker still hidden behind her rear bumper. According to the PI, they'd just finished brunch. At 2:15 p.m., my process server, a retired Marine named Harris, strolled up the winding gravel driveway with a briefcase in one hand and a document envelope in the other. He served Dana first. She answered the door wearing one of Malcolm's oversized linen shirts and a fresh spray tan. When she opened the envelope and saw the first page, the words petition for dissolution of marriage, Keene versus Keene in bold at the top, her expression shifted from confusion to shock to dread. Harris then turned, crossed the threshold, and handed the second envelope to Malcolm himself, who had been lounging shirtless on a white patio lounger. According to Harris's report, Malcolm said only 3 words. "You've got to be," then stopped. Because Harris wasn't done, he handed Dana a gift bag, black velvet, tied with a silver ribbon. Inside it, her wedding ring, wrapped in a linen napkin soaked in lighter fluid, a scrap of her bridal veil, burned at the edges, and a handwritten letter that read simply, "You've been erased." Back at the recital party, I was lighting candles on the cake when my phone buzzed once, a single message from Harris. Both served. No issues. Box delivered. Their faces? Worth every penny. I turned off my phone and put it in my pocket. Then I turned to Sophie. "Make a wish, sweetheart." She closed her eyes, blew out the candles in one breath. The crowd clapped, and I kissed the top of her head. That night, after the guests left and the kids were tucked in bed, I sat on the back porch, sipping a beer and listening to the crickets. Dana pulled into the driveway around 11. Alone. She didn't get out of the car right away, just sat there in the driver's seat, staring through the windshield, her face pale in the glow of the dash. Eventually, the door opened. She walked up the porch stairs slowly, like each step was heavier than the last. I didn't stand. I didn't speak. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then stopped when she saw the expression on my face. The calm, flat look I'd spent the last 6 weeks perfecting. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded once and opened the door, letting her pass. Inside, the house was quiet except for the ticking wall clock and the soft hum of the fridge. The kids were asleep, but her parents weren't. They were sitting at the kitchen island. Glenn and Margaret, always polite, always proper. They had come by earlier for the recital and had lingered when they noticed Dana hadn't shown. I'd told them the truth. Not every detail, not yet, but enough. About the affair, the length of it, the man involved, and the process server that would be arriving any moment. Now, the 3 of us stood in the kitchen as Dana looked between us, her eyes starting to glisten. "Mom," she whispered. "Dad." Margaret's voice was tight. "How long, Dana?" Dana opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Glenn stood up slowly. 12 years, he asked. "You let this go on for 12 years while Samuel raised those kids, paid the bills, supported you?" Dana's chin trembled. "It wasn't like that." "It's exactly like that," I said. Glenn looked at me, his jaw locked. "You have every right to take everything." I nodded. Dana wiped her face with her sleeve, turning toward me. Can we not do this right now? Can we please just talk?" I raised a hand. "No more lies," I said quietly. "And no more pretending." I looked at her parents. "You both deserve to know. I've started the custody process. I'll be keeping the kids here. The estate is being transferred to me. There's a clause in her prenup regarding adultery." Margaret's face went slack. Dana turned away, like she couldn't bear to meet her mother's eyes. You said this was a phase, Margaret whispered. You said it ended years ago. Dana didn't respond. Glenn's voice cracked. What were you thinking? I thought he'd never find out, Dana said, almost inaudibly. The room fell into a deep, ugly silence. Then I walked to the hallway, opened the door to my study, and pulled out the envelope with the lab paperwork. Not the DNA results. Not yet. Just the letter from the lawyer. I handed it to Dana. Next steps are already in motion, I said. Your lawyer will be contacted Monday. She opened the envelope, eyes scanning the formal language, and then looked back at me. I never wanted to hurt the kids, she said, voice shaking. You did, I replied. And now you'll deal with that. On paper. In court. Then I turned to Glenn and Margaret. You're welcome here anytime, I said. This is still your granddaughter's home. Your grandson's too. That doesn't change. Margaret's eyes filled. Thank you. Dana stood in the middle of the kitchen, watching it all slide away. The home, the stability, the trust of her own parents. She looked small, hollow, and for the first time since this all began, I felt nothing for her. No rage. No sorrow. Just release. I poured myself a glass of water, took a sip, and said the last words I'd say to her that night. Check the bag. The ashes are real. Then I walked out of the kitchen. She didn't follow. The next day, I was spreading mulch in the front garden when I saw a silver SUV pull up to the curb. Out stepped Tessa Ridgway, perfect as ever in a tailored gray pantsuit and oversized sunglasses, her daughter in tow. The girl looked about 9, clinging to her mother's clutch like she was scared to let go. Tessa adjusted her blazer, took a breath, and marched toward the house like she had every right in the world to be here. I wiped my hands on a towel and stood to meet her on the front walk. Samuel, she said, offering a brittle smile. I thought we should talk. I don't think there's anything left to say, I replied. My tone was even, not hostile, just done. She gave a soft, fake laugh. Come on. That's not the way we used to be. You mean when you were lying for Dana? When you were booking hotel rooms under fake business names so she could sneak off with your brother? Her smile cracked, just slightly. I looked down at the little girl still gripping her hand. You brought your daughter to this? She cleared her throat. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't need to, I said. Let's not do this out here. I gestured to the porch. Tessa hesitated, then followed me up the steps. I offered her daughter a juice box from the cooler, which she took without a word, sitting quietly on the porch swing while we talked 10 feet away. Tessa folded her arms tightly. Look, I didn't ask to be involved in any of this. I was just helping my brother. By helping him lie to a married woman with kids? Helping him destroy a family? I didn't know how long it was going on, she said. I thought it was just. You knew, I said flatly. The first hotel booking under a dummy name came from your office account in 2013. The last one, last month. Her face went pale. You're complicit, I continued. And I named you in the discovery filings. You'll be served next week unless you settle. Tessa's voice dropped, panicked. You're really doing this? I didn't blink. You helped cover up a 12-year affair. You enabled travel fraud, concealment of funds, and possibly assisted in parental misrepresentation if DNA testing comes back the way I suspect. You think this is just about two people cheating? She didn't respond. I looked over at her daughter, now sipping quietly, eyes darting between us. I lowered my voice. You dragged your kid into this. Not me. I didn't know where else to go, Tessa whispered. I stepped forward, voice low and firm. You came here to get ahead of the damage. To save your job, your image. You don't care about what this did to me or the kids. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise. She stood frozen for a moment, then nodded once. I'll talk to my attorney, she murmured. We'll figure something out. Make sure you do, I said. Because I don't bluff. Tessa turned to leave, motioning for her daughter. But before she reached the stairs, she turned back. For what it's worth, I never thought it would end like this. I stared at her. You never thought it would end. That's the problem. As she drove off, I saw a familiar minivan pull into the driveway. Glenn and Margaret, Dana's parents. They stepped out slowly, like they weren't sure if they were still welcome. You're fine, I said. Come on in. Inside, they sat on the living room couch, both looking more exhausted than I'd ever seen them. I want to apologize, Glenn said, for not seeing it, for making excuses. Margaret nodded beside him, her eyes misting over. We raised her better. At least we thought we did. You don't need to apologize to me, I said. You've been nothing but kind to the kids. That's all that matters now. Margaret took my hand. We're on your side, Sam. We'll help with anything. School pickups, therapy sessions, whatever you need. That broke me more than anything Dana ever did. Support. Steady. Unconditional. I appreciate it, I said, my voice tighter than I meant. Later that evening, I sat the kids down at the kitchen table and told them the truth. Not all of it. Not yet, but enough. That's why Mom and I are going to be living separately for a while, I said. It's not your fault. None of it. Sophie leaned against my arm, quiet. Caleb didn't say anything. He just nodded, blinking too much. We're going to be okay, I said, reaching out and taking both their hands. It's going to be different, but we'll be okay. They didn't cry. Maybe because they'd already felt it coming. Maybe because I'd made the space feel solid enough to stand in. That night, when they were asleep, I stood by their bedroom doors for a long time, just listening to the soft rhythm of their breathing. In the background, my phone buzzed. An email from Harriet. Tessa's legal counsel just reached out. They're open to settlement talks. As expected, I closed the phone and exhaled. The truth was out now. Not loud, not messy, but undeniable. And everyone who helped Dana hide it, they weren't hiding anymore. It was a Tuesday evening when Glenn, Dana's father, and I decided to grab a drink. We'd been texting back and forth since the recital, mostly about the kids, but also about the strange bond that had formed between us. I guess there's something uniquely sobering about watching your daughter detonate her marriage from the inside out. Glenn didn't try to defend her. Not anymore. He just showed up, listened more than he spoke, and stayed for cleanup. We met at a local bar in Vienna, a quiet place with old wood booths and a neon beer sign that hummed softly in the corner. The kind of spot where the bartender knew how to leave you alone unless your glass was empty. Thanks again for doing this, Glenn said, lifting his bottle. No thanks needed, I replied, clinking mine against his. We're just two tired guys trying not to drown in the fallout. He chuckled. Fair. We talked about football, the kids' school, and briefly about Dana. Mostly in past tense. Glenn stared into his drink. I keep wondering if there was a moment, one single moment, where I could have stopped this. Said something. Done something differently. I didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't a moment. Maybe Dana had made up her mind years ago. But just as I was about to speak, the door slammed open behind me. I didn't need to turn around. I recognized the voice before anything else. You smug son of a bitch. Glenn's face went white. I turned and saw Malcolm Ridgway storming across the bar, red-faced, wild-eyed, shirt half-tucked like he'd rushed out of somewhere in a blind rage. His fists were clenched, and his jaw twitched with every step. Here we go, I muttered, sliding my bottle away and standing up. You think you can ruin my goddamn life? Malcolm shouted, his voice already echoing. You think you can just embarrass me in front of my board, in front of my family? I didn't answer. I wasn't going to give him the show he wanted. But then he reached me and shoved me hard. I stumbled back into the table behind me, knocking over a couple's drink and sending their nachos skidding across the wood. Glenn jumped up. Hey, Malcolm. Before he could finish, Malcolm lunged again, swinging wide. I dodged, barely, and his fist caught the edge of my jaw instead of my cheek. It still hurt like hell. He was a few inches shorter than me, but he fought like someone who didn't care about consequences. That's the problem with men like him. They only understand control. So I gave him none. This time, when he swung, I grabbed his wrist midair and landed 2 quick punches to his ribs. Controlled. Efficient. Not meant to injure, just drop his wind. He gasped and stumbled back, crashing into a bar stool and knocking it over. The bartender ducked behind the counter and hit a button. I didn't need to be told. The police were already on their way. Malcolm wasn't finished. He wheezed, grabbed a beer glass from the bar, and threw it, missed me by 3 feet. Then he charged again. I braced myself, ready to subdue him, but Glenn stepped between us and caught him mid-sprint. Stop it, Glenn barked, grabbing Malcolm by the collar and shoving him backwards. You're done. You hear me? Malcolm tried to shake him off, but it was useless. Glenn held him there with both arms, breathing hard. You want to hit someone? Glenn snapped. Try me. Try the man whose daughter you helped destroy. Malcolm spat on the floor. She came to me. You think I had to chase her? You're a 53-year-old parasite, I said coldly. And your sister's about to settle out of court. Guess who's next? He lunged again, or tried to. But by then, Two patrons had jumped in to restrain him. He thrashed for a few seconds, yelling obscenities, until the front door burst open and two officers rushed inside. "Hands behind your back. Get off me." They didn't bother arguing. One of them tackled him against the bar and cuffed him while the other read his rights. Malcolm was shouting the whole time, "This isn't over. You hear me? You're a dead man, Keen. You ruined everything." I stood quietly as they dragged him out, still flailing, still barking threats. When the door slammed shut behind them, the bar went quiet again. The same dull music played overhead like nothing had happened. The bartender peeked up from the counter. "You good, man?" I nodded. "Yeah, fine." But I wasn't. My jaw ached. My chest felt like someone had dropped an engine block on it. My hands were shaking, even though I hadn't noticed until now. Glenn exhaled and sat down hard. "Well, that was something." I gave a hollow laugh and reached for my water. My knuckles were bruised. Malcolm had gotten one good swing in, but he'd paid for it. 10 minutes later, I was lying on a hospital bed while a nurse checked my vitals and made notes in a clipboard. Glenn stood in the corner, arms folded, staring at the clock like it had betrayed him. "Doctor says nothing's broken," the nurse said. "Just bruising. You'll be sore for a few days." "Good," I muttered. "I've had worse." As she left, Glenn turned to me. "You gonna press charges?" "I don't have to," I said. "The bar's pressing for aggravated assault. It's automatic when it's that public." Glenn nodded. "Probably cost him his board seat." "I hope it costs him his voice," I said. Back at home that night, I sat on the porch with an ice pack and a whiskey. My jaw throbbed in rhythm with my pulse. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked and a car alarm chirped twice. My kids were asleep upstairs. Safe. Oblivious. Malcolm had been arrested. Dana's parents were on my side. Tessa was folding. The truth was out. And for the first time in this entire mess, someone else had lost control. Not me. Not anymore. I woke up late Thursday morning to the beep of my hospital wristband still clutched in my jacket pocket. My jaw was stiff. Bruised, but not broken. I'd slept upright on the couch again, half out of habit, half because it felt safer staying downstairs lately. I didn't hear her come in. Just the soft click of the front door, the creak of the floorboards in the hallway, and then her voice. "Sam." I looked up. Dana stood in the entryway, wearing jeans and a pale gray sweater I'd seen 100 times. No makeup, no polished face. Her hair pulled into a loose braid like she hadn't slept. "I knocked," she added softly. No one answered. I stayed seated. "The locks work fine. You just don't respect them." She flinched but stepped inside anyway. "I wanted to check on you. I heard what happened at the bar," she said. "With Malcolm." I studied her face. There was worry there. Real worry. Maybe, but it didn't move me. "I'm fine," I said. "Can't say the same for him." She nodded, folding her arms across her chest. "They said you were taken to the hospital. Bruised ribs. Jaws tender." I lifted the corner of my shirt, showing her the faint swelling along my side. "It'll heal." She closed her eyes for a second. "I'm sorry, Sam. I never thought it would get this far. I never wanted anyone to get hurt." I gave a cold laugh. "No, you just wanted the benefits of 2 lives and the fallout of neither." She came closer, pulling out a folded envelope from her purse. "I didn't come here to fight. I came to give you this." I didn't reach for it. "What is it?" "My signed response," she said. "To the divorce petition." I raised an eyebrow. "Already?" "I don't want a war," she said. "You've made your stance clear." I took the envelope and set it on the coffee table without opening it. She sat across from me, hands in her lap, fiddling with her wedding ring, still on her finger. I didn't comment. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said. "And I owe you an explanation." "I already know what happened," I said. "I've seen the reports, the receipts, the videos." "You know the facts," she replied. "But not the why." I said nothing. She looked down at her hands. "It started out as leverage." That's what I told myself. I was trying to get ahead. I wanted control. Options. And Malcolm made it so easy. He offered things I couldn't get from anyone else. Board seats, deals, contracts. It made me feel important. "More important than your family?" I asked. "I didn't expect it to last," she whispered. But then it did. And eventually, it wasn't about power anymore. I stared at her. "So what was it about?" She looked up, and her voice cracked. "Escape. From the version of me I didn't know how to be anymore. The wife. The mom. The one who folds laundry and signs permission slips, and has sex once a week out of obligation. I blinked. Wow. I'm not proud of it, Sam, she said quickly. But I needed something that felt mine. And with Malcolm, I felt visible. I leaned forward slightly. You were visible here. You just stopped looking in the mirror. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I kept telling myself you loved me enough to look the other way. That you'd never blow it all up. That maybe we could just live with it. I sat back. You thought I'd share you? I thought you'd choose peace over pride. I shook my head slowly. That's not peace, Dana. That's servitude. I loved you, she whispered. Part of me still does. Not the part that mattered. She swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill over. I know I broke something that can't be fixed, but I need to say it out loud. I'm sorry. I was selfish. I lied. I betrayed you. And I hurt our kids in ways I don't even understand yet. For a moment, I believed she meant it. Not because I forgave her, I didn't. But because her voice finally cracked where it had always been composed. She looked up at me with a hollow expression. I don't expect you to ever love me again. But please, don't hate me in front of them. I can't lose them completely. I stood, slowly, my body still sore from the fight, but my footing steady now. You don't need to lose them, I said. But you will earn back every second. Through therapy, through supervised visits, through showing up, not just explaining. She nodded quickly. Anything. I'll do anything. I walked to the mantel and picked up a photo. The four of us at the lake. Sophie holding a marshmallow on a stick, Caleb in my lap. Dana in the middle, her smile wide and blinding. That version of us. Gone. You loved yourself more than the life we built, I said. And now, I finally love myself enough to let go of the person who didn't choose me. Her breath hitched. I turned back to her. So here's how this ends. You'll sign what's left. You'll follow the visitation terms. You'll stay away from Ridgeway permanently. And you'll get help. Not for me. For the kids. For yourself. Because right now, I don't see a mother. I see a woman unraveling in real time. She nodded, wordless. Take your ring off, I said. She did. Slowly, with trembling fingers. I opened a drawer, took out the velvet pouch from the scorched veil box, and held it out. She dropped the ring in without a word. Goodbye, Dana. She stood there, shoulders drawn tight, eyes wet, lips pressed into a line. Then she whispered, thank you. For not screaming. I did my screaming already, I said. You just weren't around to hear it. She turned and left. This time, she didn't look back. And this time, I didn't want her to. The custody hearing didn't take long. Dana didn't contest it. Harriet said it was the cleanest one she'd seen in a decade. She didn't even flinch when the judge asked if she wanted shared custody, she told me afterward. Almost like she knew she'd already lost that battle. The court granted me full physical and legal custody of both children. Dana was given visitation rights, supervised, biweekly, and contingent on proof of ongoing therapy. The judge called it a structured transition period. I called it relief. The kids took it better than I'd expected, mostly because they'd already begun to sense the changes. Sophie didn't ask to call her mom after the hearing. Caleb did, once, but didn't say much. Just hi, and I'm okay, and bye. Short sentences. Eyes on the floor. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've poured everything into rebuilding a routine. A new normal. Breakfast with actual food. Eggs, toast, fruit. Not just cereal in the back seat. Homework at the dining table. No screens until it's done. They complained at first, but even Sophie admitted she liked having a real schedule. She said it with that small, testing smile, like she was afraid I'd take it away. I didn't. Therapy sessions started last week. Individual for each of them, and one family session every other Friday. The counselor, a woman named Diane, told me it would take time. They're grieving something they can't even explain yet, she said. So we take it slow. Walks after dinner. Movie nights. Music playing in the car again, not just silence. And I've learned to keep tissues in the glove box. For the days Caleb shuts down in the middle of a math worksheet and just whispers, she lied to us. For the nights Sophie crawls into bed with me and doesn't ask permission. The hard part is staying steady, letting them have space to fall apart without falling apart with them. That's the real work. Dana's visits began last weekend. She arrived 10 minutes early, clean-faced and quiet. The court-appointed supervisor sat with them in a community room at the therapy center. The kids were stiff at first, but polite. Sophie showed her a drawing. Caleb asked about the dog we used to foster. It was cordial. Strained. No tears. No yelling. Progress, maybe. She left with a plastic smile and no promises. I watched from my car in the lot. Didn't get out. Didn't wave. She didn't look for me. Tessa's lawyer sent over final paperwork a few days later. She settled out of court. Undisclosed sum, formal statement of cooperation, and a notarized apology addressed to me and the children. Harriet called it a strategic retreat. I called it a quiet admission of guilt. Malcolm's hearing came shortly after. Aggravated assault, resisting arrest, and property damage. 3 months county time with probation tacked on. He pled out. No courtroom drama. Just a headline in the local section and a grainy mugshot that made him look 20 years older. He didn't apologize. Didn't even try. Dana's name never came up during sentencing. That was part of the deal. But everyone knew. Everyone. The silence that followed was the loudest part. No more strange texts. No more late-night knocks. No more attempts to twist the truth back in her favor. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I finally found breath. I started cooking again. Real meals, not just survival food. Caleb discovered he liked roasting carrots with thyme. Sophie decided Tuesdays were dad-only dessert nights. I didn't argue. Their laughter returned gradually, first in flickers, then in waves. School drop-offs no longer felt like a rush to escape the house. We started leaving 5 minutes early just to play one more song in the car. And in the middle of all that, the rebuilding, the therapy, the leftovers in Tupperware, I found something I hadn't felt in months. Stillness. Not peace. Not yet. But something close. Late one night, I stood outside in the driveway, looking at the stars. The porch light behind me buzzed faintly, and the air smelled like cut grass and rain. The house was quiet. The kids were asleep. I closed my eyes and exhaled. No more hiding. No more pretending. It was over. Not the pain. That would linger. But the weight of her betrayal? I'd finally set it down. And I wasn't picking it back up. 3 months later, I boarded a plane bound for Zurich. First leg of a hiking tour that Dana and I were supposed to take for our anniversary. Funny how plans shift. I kept the ticket, but not the intention. Instead of a romantic mountain escape, it became something different, a pause. A breath between chapters. My parents stayed with the kids, and I left behind a binder labeled Everything You'll Need. I packed light. Just a duffel, boots, and one hardback book I never opened. The group met in Lucerne, 10 strangers and one tour guide who talked too fast and smiled too much. I liked him anyway. The others were mostly retired couples or solo travelers, the kind who wear layers even when it's 80 degrees, just in case. On the second day, I met Claire. She was standing near the hotel lobby, squinting at a folded map while sipping espresso from a paper cup. "I think this is upside down," she muttered. I leaned in. "Well, either the river's in the sky, or you're absolutely right." She laughed. Soft, Canadian accent. "Guess I'm not built for solo travel." "Better than traveling with the wrong person," I said, before I could stop myself. She looked at me for a moment, then nodded like she knew exactly what I meant. Claire was a botanist. Divorced 2 years. No kids, no rush, just a need to feel small under tall trees for a while. She had a way of pausing before she spoke, like she was sorting through what mattered and what didn't. We started walking near each other during the hikes. Not talking much at first, just pacing, breathing the same alpine air. Then came the stories. She told me about a man who broke her heart in pieces she hadn't even known were whole. I told her about Dana, not all the dirty details, just the broad strokes. The affair, the fallout, the ache. Claire didn't flinch. She didn't pity, either. She just listened, then passed me a piece of dried mango and said, "That's rough, but you made it out." And somehow, that meant more than 100 sorries. One night, over wine at a tiny inn near Lauterbrunnen, we sat on a bench watching the mist roll over the mountains. The others had gone to bed, but we stayed. "I wasn't looking for anyone," she said, swirling her glass. "I still don't know if I am," I replied. She nodded. "That's okay. You don't have to know. Maybe it's just nice to sit beside someone who gets it." So we did. Quiet. Simple. Uncomplicated. On the last day, she gave me her email and a folded postcard with a pressed flower inside. "Just in case you miss Switzerland," she said. "Or company." I smiled and slipped it into my coat. Back home, life rolled on. School drop-offs. Soccer practice. Caleb learning to fry eggs without supervision. Sophie teaching herself how to play Billie Eilish songs on piano. I didn't mention Claire at first, not because I was hiding her, just giving it space. Then one night, after the kids were asleep, I sent her an email. Hey, you were right. I miss Switzerland. And I definitely miss the company. She replied the next morning. Let's fix that. One call at a time. So now, every Sunday evening, we talk. Not long. Just half an hour, sometimes less. Enough to catch up, to laugh, to breathe. We talk about her students, the research grant she's chasing. She asks about Caleb's science project, Sophie's new obsession with abstract art. It's not romance. Not yet. But it's something else I didn't expect. Hope. And the best part? It doesn't feel like a replacement. It feels like a beginning. Not rushed. Not forced. Just real. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, a day like any other. Sophie had just gotten home from school and was scrolling through old photos on my phone, looking for one of her science fair project. She paused on a picture Claire had sent a week earlier. The two of us at the edge of a trail in British Columbia, wine glasses in hand, her red scarf blowing sideways in the wind. I had my arm around her, smiling in a way I hadn't seen on myself in years. Sophie smiled and tapped send to share it with Dana. I didn't think much of it at the time. She'd been trying to rebuild something with her mom, even in small ways. Emails, text messages, the occasional link to a funny video. I didn't interfere. But 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. Tessa, call me. It's Dana. I called her immediately. Her voice was shaky, panicked. She's in the hospital, Tessa said. I found her. She tried to overdose. My mouth went dry. Is she? She's stable, Tessa cut in. They got to her in time. But she's being held under psychiatric evaluation. 72 hours, minimum. I sat down on the edge of the kitchen bench, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly deafening. What happened? I asked, even though I already knew. She saw the photo, Tessa whispered. The one with you and the new woman. I think it just snapped something in her. Claire. The trail. That smile. I closed my eyes. Where are the kids now? She asked. In their rooms. They don't know anything. Good, she said. Dana's going to need serious help. Real, clinical help. I didn't say anything for a moment. Just stared out the kitchen window at the quiet backyard. The swing set Caleb never used anymore. The garden bed Sophie insisted on watering even when nothing grew. Tessa continued, her voice gentler now. She told the doctors she didn't see a way forward. That she'd ruined everything. She mentioned you. The kids. That there was no space left for her in your life. I let the silence hang. Then finally, I said, she was right. That night, I sat the kids down on the couch. Dana's parents were there too, Glenn and Margaret. I called them right after Tessa, told them what happened, asked if they wanted to be the ones to explain. But they said no. Whatever Dana is going through, Margaret told me, you're the one they trust. So I sat between them and kept it simple. Your mom is safe, I said. But she's not okay right now. She's in the hospital. She needs rest and help. And time. Caleb didn't say anything. He leaned his head against my arm, blinking fast. Sophie looked down at her hands. Is it because of that photo? I hesitated. She saw it, I admitted. But what happened wasn't your fault. Or mine. Or Claire's. Your mom's been struggling for a long time. Sophie nodded once. She texted me last week. Said she was trying to be better. She will be, I said. But it's not our job to fix her. Only to hope she chooses to get better. They didn't ask more questions. And I didn't offer more answers. That night, I got an email from the hospital. Dana had been moved to a longer-term psychiatric facility for evaluation. She wouldn't be able to call for a few days. But the message said she'd asked the staff to let me know she was sorry. Again, I stared at the screen for a while. Then clicked archive. I didn't reply. The next morning, Sophie handed me a drawing. A picture of our family, me, her, Caleb, and a dog she apparently planned on convincing me to adopt, standing in front of the mountains from that photo with Claire. Dana wasn't in it. Neither was Claire. Just the three of us and a space that felt open. Like it was okay not to fill every blank with someone else. That Saturday, I booked 3 plane tickets to Vancouver for spring break. I didn't tell the kids why. Just said we'd be doing some hiking, maybe visit some botanical gardens. Caleb groaned. Sophie lit up. Typical. Claire called that night. I told her we were coming. She didn't say much at first, just a quiet, that's wonderful. But I could hear the smile in her voice. There was no promise made. No title changed. No rushing ahead. Just a next step. As I packed the suitcase with extra socks and waterproof jackets, I paused at the bottom drawer. Inside was the old velvet pouch, the one I used to return Dana's wedding ring. I hadn't thrown it away, not out of sentiment, just timing. Now, I tossed it into the trash, then zipped the suitcase closed. At last, I felt it. Not just relief, not just recovery. Peace. Not the fragile kind, held together by silence or obligation, but the earned kind. The kind you fight for, bleed for, survive for. I was no longer waiting for Dana to be okay. I wasn't waiting to be whole. I was already there. And so were my kids. We weren't unscarred, but we were unbroken. And that was enough.